there was a common denominator in every company. Training was terrible. As soon as I start seeing what AI could do, to me, the biggest use case could be personalization. We built an agent, and her name is AILA, and it stands for AI Leadership Agent.
AILA and the work that I do from here on forward is much more inclusive than it was how I used to do it before. Is that something that's possible in this new era?
So the more context AILA has, the better it can help you become a better manager.
I think finding ways that we can use technology to democratize some of those day-to-day things, it makes those more meaningful, deeper conversations, deeper connections, deeper development opportunities, even that much more important. Well, welcome back to the Future Human Experience podcast. I am so excited for a special guest today in the conversation we're going to have. We have the CEO and founder of Tariy, Andres Sigcha. Bienvenido. Welcome to the Future Human Experience podcast.
Oh, gracias, Eric. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Well, Andres, we had an opportunity not only to connect because of the work that we care about, but also because of our background of being connected to Ecuador, siendo ecuatorianos. But more importantly, you have founded a fascinating company over the last 36 months. Share with us a little bit more about what Tariy is and what has driven you to form a company like this over the last few months.
Thank you for that opportunity, Eric. So I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, and then I think it will kind of make more sense for everybody to understand. So I had the fortune to work with many companies, large companies throughout my career. I was, from like director of global sales for companies, working in strategy, and just did a lot of things in different places of the world. And then once I became an entrepreneur, I built a couple businesses that just gave me some runway. And once those two businesses were working, I was like, okay, this is my time to build something that I have had experience, that I have seen the pain point, and that I think that I know how to solve it. And now, let me go back to the story. Really, working for large companies, I thought that, if I work for this company, this will be my experience. And then I will go to another company, and this will be my experience. But there was a common denominator in every company. Training was terrible. And the cause of training being bad, it was that most managers were terrible. And I was like, okay, there has to be like a reason why this. And I became a little bit obsessed about research and kind of where those things happen. And it found out that 83% of managers are never trained.
Wow.
So think of this. Most of the leaders that are in companies now have never received one day of training.
Wow. They
might have been given a book,
or
a file, and that was their train. I'll tell you a story. I worked for this large company. I'm not gonna say their name because everybody will know. And they brought TV in wheels, and he's gonna tell you a little bit how old I am.
Wow.
With a DVD. It was a DVD, so I'm a little old.
It wasn't a laser one.
No, exactly. So they rolled the cart, they put some soda, they brought a pizza, and I was in the room for 8 hours, and I was trained.
Wow.
And the next day, I was like, what about this? I was like, you didn't watch the training? I'm like, yeah, but... And I'm like, what? How do I do this? And like, isn't the training? And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but it was a video, and I was there, for 8 hours. Like, how? And anyhow, that was one of the best experiences. I went to another company, nothing. I was supposed to do my job as if I would have known how to do it without clarity, without expectations, and without directions. And to me, I'm like, okay. I start doing a research, asking people about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, every single company is experiencing this. Every company knows that they don't have a way to train, especially individual contributors that get promoted to first-time managers.
Yes.
And that's where the light bulb came up, and I was like, let's build this.
Wow. Well, that's interesting, right? Because I think in this world that's moving at exponential pace, right? That it feels that every single week we have either a new headline or something new coming up. If I'm either a shareholder or a leader in a particular corporation, I also feel I'm feeling left behind. And so what that motivates me to do, or incentivizes me to do, is to try to move as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And at times, fast doesn't mean efficient. All right, or effective, right? It could just be like, hey, if I could put, our latest 10 hires into one room for 8 hours, man, by Tuesday they're done.
Yeah.
Right. And that seems to be the experience that you had. Or at that time, even they would say, instead of hiring a trainer, if I could just record this, put this on a DVD and ship it to 50 of my clients around the country, they'll be trained again, right? Because it's cheaper than hiring 50 trainers. But doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be effective. But you have found a way, at least to start exploring a way of still using technology at scale to try to solve this problem. Tell us a little bit more about, that's your inspiration for Tariy.
Yeah.
So what does Tariy do today, and how do you work with clients and with organizations in different shapes and sizes?
Yeah, definitely. So funny that you mentioned this. I'm sure we have seen this in social media and a lot of places. There is several companies that now do training where you just upload a document and then an avatar speaks the training. And I'm like, whoa, what an innovative way to do the same thing you have done for 20 years and now you make it an avatar. What is the difference?
Yes.
There is nothing. It's the method. So just because you change the method doesn't mean that you're becoming more effective at doing something. Yes, people might ingest differently and they're like, oh, nice. Now I can do it in my language, or now I can do it at my pace. But it's still, it has no application, it has no relevance, and it's not personalized. So that, to me, as soon as I start seeing what AI could do and what the applications for LLMs can be, I was like, to me, the biggest use case could be personalization. How content, how the whatever it is built for me. Built in a way that I can relate, built in a way that I can understand, and that it has context of my life, context of my situation, context of my issues, context of my team, context of everything around me. And we should trademark this term, contextual as intelligence.
Yes.
And that's what we have built. So anyhow, so I'm gonna tell you now, like, and put it in a simple way. So we built an agent, and her name is AILA, and it stands for AI Leadership Agent.
Wow.
So AILA lives on Microsoft Teams right now. AILA has access to calendar, has access to your meetings, has access to your email, if you want to give to her, but also has access to your team's kind of knowledge. What is their profile? What are their preferences? And so on and so forth. But also, we're able to connect it with company knowledge, HR policies, manuals, training, you name it.
Yes.
So the more context AILA has on you, the better it can help you become a better manager.
Yes.
So I'm gonna put an example. Let's say you and I are on the same team. Eric, you get promoted because you are a top performer, and does that make you the right person to be a manager?
Not necessarily.
No, right?
Yeah.
Well, most managers are
Exactly
the one, and they are like lost. What do I do now?
Yeah.
So then you get promoted, and you're like, oh, now what? How do I have a difficult conversation? How can I, prepare a performance review? How do I lead a meeting?
Yeah.
How do I do this? And that's where AILA comes in and say, hey, Eric, how are you? How can I help you? So initially, AILA just kind of needs a little prompt from you to understand. But once AILA gets to know you, AILA is proactive.
Yeah.
So that means that AILA will say, hey, Eric, I noticed you have a meeting with Andres next week, and it's his performance review. Last time you talked to him was about this, and now it seems that he needs this. Maybe let's make sure that we connect on this point. And don't forget, he just had a baby.
Yeah.
maybe that's what is driving his performance review.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of more context to the experience of being a leader, being a manager,
yeah,
basically.
correct.
With that said, Andres, too, one of the things I find fascinating about the work that the team is leading too is you're also trying to, the example you just gave about about also remembering that, for example, they just had a child. Even though you're using AI, using this digital experience, you're still trying to enhance the human experience, right? Which y'all have realized. We've spoken about this in several episodes, right? The human experience is the premium experience. And so what I love about the work that you're leading is you're trying to solve that question or the problem of saying, technology is not here to replace us. Here's to extend our capabilities, creating these unique experiences for our managers, for our employees, for our individual contributors, for our company. And I think the other thing too I find fascinating about your work, when we first had a chance to connect it, and it resonated a lot with me, was that when we start in our different roles, even the way we recruit today, even the way we hire today, even the way we move through different organizations, I would say they're not the most personalized experience, right? They're mostly standardized experiences, which is fine. You want companies with policies, with processes, and what have you. But I think what you're trying to do with AILA and with your company is to try to expand that a little bit more, saying, hey, there's these processes in place. That's all great. But let's realize Andres is unique. Let's realize Eric is unique. Let's realize our next hire is going to be unique in how we bring them across. With that said, what are some of the lessons learned that you and your team have kind of discovered in this work? What are some of the things that you're like, wow, this surprised me? And what are some of the challenges that you still see in place in doing this work?
Definitely. I love that, really for me, that was how, in a sense, we enable people, enable managers to be better humans using technology. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. It's like, okay, I'm making better humans using something that is not human. But that's not the reality. We build the technology.
Correct.
We as humans build technology to make our lives easier, make our lives more effective, more efficient. So technology should be there to help us. And if technology can help me remember things that I will never remember, like in this case, AILA will say, hey, Andres, do you remember that Peter hasn't talked in the last 3 meetings? Maybe he's going through an issue. And I'm like, that flew over my head. But AILA is reminding me of things that make me a better leader, a better human for my team. So lessons, it's been interesting because I see this clash of generations right now in the workplace. And I think you and I talk a little bit about this, where you have Gen X, which are the leaders of the organizations now, the C-level. Then you have the millennials that are the next one that kind of will take over the next generation. And then you have the biggest generation that is going to enter the workplace with are the Gen Z. And there is, 3 very defined generations. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
And it depends where you come from, and you will say, oh, the Gen Xers are these, and the millennials are that, and the Gen Z, So, but how that has, been relevant is the fact that Gen Z, they are the adopters. They are in, they love it, they want to try it, and they want to test it, and they trust it, as long as we start with this kind of preface that this is safe. This is safe. This is yours. I did an onboarding a couple months ago with their company, and the CMO was like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because I am actually putting myself in this because I want this to be successful. And I was telling the team, I'm like, listen, everything that is shared here is AILA and yours. This doesn't go out. You can talk about your manager or your leader, and AILA will not say, hey, Eric, Andres is talking about you. You should fire him. It's safe. So let's just start with that element. So once people feel safe and feel that there is no bias, which is a super important thing. There is no bias. AILA has no bias. AILA doesn't say, well, I like Mary more and Peter. I don't like Charlie.
Yeah.
AI has no feelings,
Yeah.
has no emotions, is very specific and very objective. And that to me, it is an amazing thing that we can put into workplace. Because if you, Eric, let's say you are my manager and you're saying something about me, and then you say something about Peter, and is a common denominator, Ayla will say, maybe, Eric, do you think it could be that you are the problem and you're seeing things? So, we talk with this company, and they are like, I love that Ayla now is forcing me to see things in the way that
That's
person
awesome.
will see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Now, let me go into the next generation. Millennials, they are using it. Now, I feel that there is this maybe a little there is the early adopters and the ones that are taking it. And then we go into the Gen X. Gen X are like, I don't know if I trust it. I don't know if I can do it. I would rather tell somebody that knows me this. And I was like, perfect. It's like, we are never here to force you, and no company should force you to use that. But think of this. Whenever you tell your friend about Mary, whose side is your friend going to pick? Your side.
Yeah.
She doesn't know Mary. She doesn't know anything about that. So you are seeing only one side of the coin.
Interesting. Okay.
And you're missing out on the experience that AI could be there to give you an objective perspective.
But Andres, with that said, right, we're now in 2025, and I recall now, granted, this has been 10 years ago, right? And so I'd love to hear your perspective on how this has changed. But 10 years ago, we were talking about certain companies' hiring practices were based on AI training, right? Because they were saying, hey, you know what? This is the best of the best engineering staff here that we have. We want to hire, just with everything that we've hired, everyone that we've interviewed before, bring that, train these models so we could just find these best candidates. And what ended up happening is that it had a lot of bias in it. And so they eventually eliminated that model, and they went back to how they used to hire before, how they used to recruit. Now, I am certain things have drastically changed over the last 10 years. But with that said, how can we learn from those experiences that we do bring in? Because as human beings, we do have bias, right? We do bring in our experiences into these 100%. Spaces. How do we, or how are y'all navigating some of those conversations about using AI for a human component, but also trying to make sure not only we're building inclusive experiences like you just shared, but also ensuring ourselves that, hey, you know what? Or maybe let me ask you this way. Do you have processes in place with the tools that you put in? Maybe they raise your hand and say, you know what? I probably did develop this bias into this group, or maybe this organization was already biased, and AI is just showing me now that light, or those lenses that I was not aware of. Now, can I change that now? So AILA and the work that I do from here on forward is much more inclusive than it was how I used to do it before. Is that something that's possible in this new era?
Yeah, definitely. So we have been experimenting with some bias detection kind of algorithms into determining, okay, are you seeing that just because this person looks like this or feels like that, then you should go into it? So we have implemented safeguards. Okay. Now, think of this, AILA, and the way that we share knowledge with AILA. Let's say you're referring to me, to AILA about me, and you said Andres is this, and AILA doesn't know that Andres is a male or a female or black or white or Asian or Ecuadorian or that AILA has context on the work that we are performing and the conversations. But here's an interesting thing. AILA doesn't base your perspective of me as the ultimate truth. AILA has built a perspective, and it says, okay, Eric thinks that Andres is like this, but Mary thinks that Andres is like that. And then John thinks like Andres. So then AILA will analyze it, and it's like, okay, Eric thinks that Andres is an idiot, but everybody loves him. What's going on? So then AILA will not say, Eric, you're in the wrong. But AILA has been trained on coaching practices that it tries to prompt you to find the
That's
light.
Cool. Yes, the light, and then I love that. Andres, that is a fascinating perspective, right? That not only, you're helping our leaders, our individual contributors navigate some of these changes, but it reminds me that, when you have an opportunity to reach certain levels in certain companies, you start investing in yourself, or the company starts investing in you too. And you have these manager coaches, executive coaches, which is really cool, right? That you have these wonderful people you could connect with every other week or so to continue to progress your career. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to democratize as much as possible that experience. It's not going to replace those executive coaches. If anything, I think it's going to make those executive coaches much more valuable, right? Because now I have this day-to-day coaching opportunity that when I'm going to go and meet with someone for an hour, 2 hours every other quarter or every quarter, my God, like that is really such a unique premium experience. And so I think finding ways that we can use technology to democratize some of those day-to-day things, it makes those more meaningful, deeper conversations, deeper connections, deeper development opportunities, even that much more important.
100%. So think about this, Eric. Like, let's say, I obviously in my previous life, I was a high-level executive and I got access to coaching. And then I became friends with some coaches. I have a couple coaches in my board of advisors. And, the amount that they charge to C-levels, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Think of this. Let's just put a number, $10,000 per executive. Yeah, if you have 20, 30, it is a lot of money. But think about rolling it out to 500 managers. Impossible. Impossible to find the actual financial value on that. And they say, okay, I'm putting $10,000 in this person and they are going to do X. It doesn't make sense. And ultimately, in times where we're trying to do more with less, I think that AILA hits that nerve into hey, how can we do that? Provide an experience that is similar, that is safe, that is objective, and that makes people better, humans, at a fraction.
Yeah. Andres, one of the things too I want to make sure we touch on in this episode is highlight the great work that you are doing with Thunderbird Business School, one of the most renowned business schools in the world, frankly, is now working with y'all as well. Tell us a little bit more about the partnership and how people can learn more about how y'all are connecting this work with the next generation of leaders.
Definitely. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story because this is actually a full circle. I went to Thunderbird in 2018.
Wow.
That's an eternity.
Yeah.
And one of the crazy things is that my wife and I, we moved from the Northeast here, and I have always lived in a big city. And in Phoenix, we moved to North Phoenix, and I was like lost. And I'm like, where is the culture? Where is the art? Where is the food? Where is all this? And I was like, okay, you know what? I need to kind of get myself into this community. Long story short, I was looking at W.P. Carey from ASU, and I was like, that sounds interesting. I should improve my career. I was working for a large company then, and somebody from Thunderbird reached out. They're like, hey, you should check it out. And I'm like, Thunderbird? Sounds interesting. When that was in the Glendale campus, and I was like in my jam. All international people, just open and like thinking about cultural awareness and communication. I was like, this is it. And I had one of the best experiences of my career. That actually, Thunderbird pushed me to entrepreneurship.
Wow.
I thought that I would stay in corporate, and I got exposed with so many entrepreneurs. I was like, this is amazing. And, fast forward 7 years, I stayed connected with one of the professors there. He's like, hey, we're thinking about doing this with AI. We talked a little bit. He knew I have been, kind of building my company. We connected months later, and he's like, hey, can you help us? I'm like, I would love to help Thunderbird. I'm like, my school, my people. And I met with them, talked to the dean about it. And I was like, yes, this is what, education is all about. Is a similar element that we're doing with AILA. Is now personalizing the knowledge, context, and giving the students the ability to practice real world scenarios with AI.
That's cool.
So then education now becomes practical. It's not about knowledge. It's real practical.
Oh my God. Yeah. That is awesome, Andres. And again, congratulations. I love those full circle moments that we all have in our lives, either within our communities, or having an opportunity to work with folks that gave us the opportunities that we have today.
Yeah.
That is awesome. With that said, Andres, one of the fun things that we do with our guests every episode is you have a surprise question for me. you even warned me before and say I can't wait to ask you this question. So with that said, Andres, what question do you have for me today?
All right, question. I was thinking of two, but I think that this will be good.
Sure.
When, and it might be too silly, but
Okay, no, that's good.
when did you stop believing in Santa?
Oh, in Ecuador, actually. Yeah, I remember this vividly. I was probably 11, close to 12 years old.
Wow.
I was a big kid. And now I have an 11-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And he still believes, right? We try to do everything possible because of that experience that I had, right? Like it was so heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking. But I think it happened to me when we moved to Ecuador because, again, it was also just part of the experience of moving from United States to Ecuador and rebuilding our lives. Like we did not have all the resources that we had before, right? That, my story always says that I've shared before is that my Christmases consisted of me asking Santa for 10 things. No joke, 10 things. And me getting 9 of those 10. And I was complaining about not getting the 10th. Like that's how I was as a child. And it wasn't until I got to Ecuador when I'm like, wait, Santa's just giving one thing? Like what's up? Yeah. But then I started realizing, wow, yeah, it was the limited resources that my family had. And that was very common for a lot of the familias that were around. And then I also remember vividly one of the Christmases we gave away all of our toys that we had to kids. And all the kids every kid just got one toy. And I remember that moment leaving that day and telling my parents, like, I get it now. I get, because they used to say like giving is much more rewarding than receiving. I'm like, no, it's not. Like it's way better to receive. And then when I did that, I was like, oh, wow, I completely understand. And so that's the type of, we talk about it with our kids today. Santa does come by, but it's very limited things that we provide them, but it's more about them giving, making sure other kids have. So that's a cool question. Yeah.
Can I tell you why I asked you this? It's because I was talking to my daughter today. I was taking her to school and I was telling her about believing in things that she doesn't see. And I was like, your emotions, do you see them? I'm like, no. What about your thoughts? Do you see them? I was like, no. I'm like, are they real? Yeah. And I'm like, exactly. Yeah. So those things that you might not see are still real.
I love that.
So that's why I wanted, because to me, yes, Christmas has become a little bit obviously more like into buying things, but it's still the magic of believing in something that you don't see.
Yes, I love that. That is cool. Andres, man, thank you so much for not only joining me today. One thing also we like to do with our guests too is, do you have any, we've had a great conversation today about not only AI, the future of work, where this might be going. If people want to continue in this conversation, what has been some of either the books or the authors there that have inspired you that you recommend our guests today to tap into?
Yeah. My number one book, and I try to read it at least once a year, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Love it.
And just because it helps me center, it helps me think, and kind of always gauge of like what matters.
Yes.
When and where like everything lives and is in here.
Perfect. That's a great book. And we'll have that on the show notes as well. Andres, how could people connect with you, find you? Of course, we'll be sharing all your links, but tell us a little bit more about how people could follow your journey.
Yeah, definitely. So follow me at LinkedIn. So it's Andres Sigcha and LinkedIn. And you can email me, andres@tariy.ai, or visit our website. You can book a demo, or, so it's our website is tariy.ai.
Awesome. Well, Andres Sigcha, thank you so much for being with us today, showing us what the future human experience could be like in this digital world, but can also be much more human. Thank you, Andres.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. This is Eric, the host of the Future Human Experience. The reason why this podcast was created was to be a platform for others to really bring these conversations to life. So if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. It will really help our channel and expose these ideas for others. Thank you.